Man, what up? This big triple crime business. Let's get it, homie.
Royal Crown Spotlight in the building today, man, and I have a real special guest. I'm allowing him to introduce himself to you all.
My name is Ronald Marshall. I'm from New Orleans. I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I served 24 years in the Louisiana Department of Corrections. And glad to be home.
Yeah, man. We're gonna dive right in it. Man, serving 24 years and coming home, like what is like the real gist to everything, more than likely being so different than it was when you left?
Okay, for me, I think my hardest part was learning how to work an iPhone and a laptop, but the transition from prison to society has been relatively smooth because of the enormous support system I have from family, friends, organizations, organizers. So this is working with all love, and it's been really smooth. I haven't stumbled yet.
That's great, man. So I know that you brought up support system. Can you explain to people who have family members going through those transitions how important support is?
Yeah, support is very important because if one of your family members done 20, 10 plus years in prison, when they come home, they're basically non-existent to different systems. So basically reintegrating themselves, they're going to need some help. And today's society is a credit world. I'm starting to realize you need good credit. And family got to be there for them. You know, a lot of guys go to jail, they never had no credit, so it should be relatively easy for them to establish their credit, but they're going to need a job too. So make sure that most important thing for your family member, make sure they have some employment when they come home. As long as they got some income coming in, they can avoid financial desperation, because financial desperation leads to ideas for criminal activity and fast money.
So we're talking about credit, man. 24 years in Angola, did they school you on credit before you came home?
Nah, I actually schooled myself. I've done a lot of reading. That's why I think my transition has been really smooth for me, because I was already pre-prepared for society, because I've read everything. No matter what it was, I was always preparing myself to come home. I knew I wasn't going to die in prison. I knew that I had too much fight in me.
Right. And you actually had a longer sentence than what you served.
Yeah, I had 50 years, and thanks to PDM Nola, Norris Henderson that vote, and so many other people, Emily Posner, Christian Diamond, my attorneys, they helped me get back 26 years of that sentence.
And you living proof of what redemption, rehabilitation looks like.
Yeah, I can say that because I don't have any criminal intent in my mind. I'm really focused on working, building my own organizations, building my own businesses. I have many ideas I'm working on. I actually write my screenplays now that can give that truthful narrative on what goes on inside the prison as well as behind the scenes. They got stories that are not being told when it comes to mass incarceration in Louisiana and the United States about how racism plays a role in so many people being incarcerated. And my stories is going to expose that.
Do you feel like, man, it's so much that people who've never spent a day in jail don't even understand?
Hey, what you mean?
Like, you know how when they paint the picture of what jail looks like, people watch the movies, they paint the picture of prison, and you know, pretty much all of them are the same.
Right.
But between the movies and reality, do you feel like it's a major
there is a big missing gap. That's a narrative that's not being talked about. For instance, how judges, legislators, some representatives, sheriff associations, many of these people are investors in the prison for profit business. So they have a direct conflict when it comes to releasing guys and keeping guys in prison, because the more guys in prison, that protects their investment. So to release someone out of prison actually negatively impacts their investment. So there's a conflict between, and that should be a law that prevents elected officials or anyone that's employed by the judicial branch, executive branch, legislative branch to even invest in big prison businesses.
Right, and that's crazy because it's like, man, people don't even understand. I was looking up something last night, and they was talking about, they was showing a video of a prison, and I can't think of where it was, but they basically roam freely. You know, they have home passes, they go home, they trust them to come back. These are lifers, you know, but where they're living is totally different, and it gives them a reason to live, a reason to even want to change.
I think like a lot of the incentives, it all depends how you look at it. From a correctional officer perspective, the incentives are a matter of control and making the prisoners comfortable. That's how I see it. I've never ever accepted comfortability in prison. I didn't want anything from the system. All I wanted to do was get out of the system. So all the incentives and the benefits they was giving, the care package they was giving, they was trying to make me comfortable and for me to lose sight. And that's what's going on in prison.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's crazy you said that because I be looking at, I got some homies in Angola, you know, they still young. They might have went in at 17, 18, 19, so they right now probably just in their mid-20s, and they still having fun, you know. And I was told, I heard that most that really want to change, by that 3rd year, they kind of realize, like, this not what I'm gonna do, this not what I want to be, and they start working on that change when reality finally set in.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little longer. I've seen guys do 10 years and still stuck in that street mode, the same mindset they was in when they come to prison. But one thing I did realize for myself, after 15 plus years, and you see that the road ahead is very much longer than the road behind you, then you begin to wake up and realize, man, I got a long way to go before I complete a 75-year sentence, or a particular life sentence. You know, like you can see next to somebody that's in a dormitory, he got 3 years, this guy got life, but they wake up in the same physical reality every day, but the mental reality of waking up with a 3-year sentence as opposed to a life sentence is totally different. Yeah. This guy here road is dark. This guy here road is got light at the end of the tunnel, but yet this lifer can actually get caught up in the journey of a short timer and lose focus of his own dark path. That happens a lot.
So how old were you when you went in?
I was 23, come home at 47.
So, you know, right now they talking about, they having this big discussion on how the brain is not fully developed at the time where they giving a lot of these people life. And you've experienced it. You went in so young and you did 20 plus years. Like, what do you say about that? Like, knowing from your own experience how you thought at 23 versus how you think now.
Well, I can say this. Some guys, the intelligence of some men are slower than other men. And I say that because at the age of 23, I was actually in the parish jail before I got convicted, understanding the complexities of law. But when I got to Angola, there was guys twice my age who had been down 30 plus years, and here it is, these guys was asking me, a new entry, how to help them with law. And I'd be like, man, you've been down 30 years, you should be teaching me law. I only been in the system 3 years, you know what I'm saying?
Down that long and don't even come home with a degree.
Exactly.
I mean, a GED.
Exactly. So, you know, and there are some guys, I really think the mind is malleable, meaning it's teachable. It can learn anything. Yeah. What I think a lot of guys lack is that discipline. Yeah. That discipline to sit still in one spot, even though learning may be boring to them, they don't have the discipline to go through that boring process. Right. And I think that was such successful people apart from non-successful people, because successful people, when they want something, you really, really want something, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna go through that boring process. And it's all about just sitting still, in one spot with your head down for hours at a time, and some people don't have the discipline to do that.
Bogus, that's real. You said a mouthful. So who were like your strongest supporters throughout these 25 years?
My mother. I mean, 25 years, my mother visited me at least twice a month. It wasn't twice a month, it was once a month for 24 years, and she didn't miss a beat.
That made you realize you still was somebody.
Yes, it did. My mom made me know that she loved me, I was somebody, and she used to always tell me, son, the same laws that got you in prison is the same laws that are gonna get you out here. And she told me that in like
before they started changing.
In 1999, she told me that. She told me that when I first got to Angola. Yeah, and I used to always play it in my mind. The laws that got me in prison gonna be laws that got me out of prison, and it didn't make sense to me till 20 years later.
And you know, I know how like you have to go in front of different boards. You know, they ask you these questions, different questions. I'm not sure all the questions they ask, like when people go on parole board, but my biggest question is, what was the biggest thing you took from this experience?
From my incarceration? Yes. The biggest thing I took from it was that we was cast away. Nobody don't really care about prisons. Another thing I saw, that prison is like a sightseeing grave. It allows you, you're dead in prison to the world. So it being a sightseeing grave, it allows you to actually see the people who would actually visit your grave physically. You can actually see it. It's a sightseeing grave. You know what I'm saying? It's a sightseeing grave to you. And I saw so many, it reveals things to you. Prison, the long journey, it reveals everything to you. And I always tell people, man, time is a great revealer. And during time in prison reveals some harsh truths about your family, yourself, the guy living next door to you. Yeah, that was my biggest thing. It became a sightseeing grave. I was able to see who loved me and who didn't, who cared, who didn't. And being in prison, even though I'm still alive, in actual death, that experience in prison allowed me to see who actually would visit my grave if I was to die.
Bro, I've never heard anyone put it out there like that, and that's so powerful because when you sit there and think about it, that is 100% true.
It's 100% true. I'm talking about T. I cry. I even question the Creator so many times. Like, man, nobody don't love me except my mom. Man.
That's all you needed.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. That's all you needed, man. Man. Lastly, well, one thing I always like to ask any of my guests, my number one question is, we all have an expiration date on this side of the earth.
Right.
When you leave this earth, what do you want your legacy to be?
Okay, so I want my legacy to, I want to be remembered. When you speak about your legacy, you're talking about your memories, how people's going to remember you. And honestly, I want to be one of those guys who will remember from conquering prison. Prison did not conquer. I conquered it because I'm free now. It didn't break me. I'm not tuition. And I want to be remembered to you when I leave this earth as a man who done 24 years, but also changed the way that people incarcerated are viewed. You know what I'm saying? Because I left a lot of friends behind the wall. And my everyday walk, my everyday thought, everything I do, I hear those guys' voices in my head. You know what I'm saying? I have my own voice, but when you have the voices of 500 more men in your head, it kind of overpowers your own voice. You know what I'm saying? And as long as I stay connected to that struggle, I'll never forget them, and I'm always going to be compelled to do what's in their best interest as well as my own. So I want to be remembered as that guy who never ever forgot those behind the wall. I want to be remembered for that.
That's powerful. And lastly, the floor is yours. Any shout outs, any thank yous, any advice you want to give, whatever you want to say at this point, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I want to thank my mom first and foremost, because the Creator gave her the power to walk with me 24 years non-stop. I want to thank PDM Northern, Fox and Rob, that whole team over there. I want to thank Norris Henderson, the Vote whole team. I want to thank myself, because it was me actually that took those steps to make a difference in my own life when I was incarcerated. To all my brothers behind the wall in the Department of Correction, man, I love y'all. I know y'all may not hear this video. I love y'all. I'm working. I am partnering with a lawyer. I am partnering with organizations, and we actually doing the work. And also to the correctional office, Department of Corrections. You know, one thing I know is about the first time I actually heard the words "I can't breathe" was not George Floyd's death. I heard those words in a cell next to me by another offender who's being strangled out by several correctional officers. But there was no cell phones in that prison system to record that death. And nor there was no trial or no prosecution of the correctional officers, and that needs to stop. Too many men are being strangled in the Department of Correction, and there are not enough arrests of correctional officers. There needs to be something in place to change that. And that's what I'm going to be working on, to make sure that those who kill offenders are held accountable. They need to be held accountable for those murders, because that's what it is. When you enter a man's cell and you strangle him and you hold him down until his death, you actually kill another human being.
Purposely.
And you need to be arrested for that. Correctional officers, they walk around the prison with the Confederate flags on their arms and racism as a badge of honor, and they have no problem letting you know that they are prejudiced toward black offenders. That needs to change as well. And that's all I have to say. My name is Ronald Marshall. I enjoyed the interview.
All right, we out.